Looking at these pictures, you'd probably guess this is the Deepwater Horizon oil rig on fire in the Gulf of Mexico. It's not. This is the West Atlas rig, 150 miles off Australia's northwest coast. A blowout here caused the Montara oil spill 8 months before the disaster in the Gulf. In both cases, experts suspect there were problems with the cementing of the wells, and it was a relief well that finally stopped the leak in Australia after almost 3 months, the likely method for killing the well in the Gulf. What ultimately led to the blowout? We asked Greg Bourne, the head of World Wildlife Fund Australia.
Overall sloppiness. That's the way I would describe it.
He points a finger at the Thai company that owned the well and the Australian government.
We drill wells all the time. None of this happens very often. Yeah, it's okay. All will be right. You know, Australia would say, she'll be right. But it's not.
The spills are not identical. The Montara well was in only 250 feet of water. It spewed much more natural gas than oil, and the oil never hit Australia's coast, most of it evaporating at sea. The slick from the Montara spill was more than 100 times the size of Sydney Harbor, but still tiny compared to the spill in the Gulf of Mexico. Despite this difference in scale, though, experts like Greg Bourne say the U.S. and other oil-producing nations should have paid more attention to the spill in Australia.
The analogy I would use would be in those terrible tragedies of an air crash. Immediately, the regulatory agencies around the world work together to work out what's gone wrong. How do we stop it happening? Planes get grounded in every single country in the world for a few days whilst people inspect and check. That's not the model that it's occurring in the world of offshore drilling.
And Bourne should know, before becoming an environmentalist, he spent years working for BP. In fact, you have a lot of experience with deepwater drilling.
Yeah, look, my background was drilling engineering, and I worked in the United States out of Dallas, designing some of this offshore equipment and working on this offshore equipment.
Bourne says the U.S. government response to the Gulf spill has been much better than the way Australia dealt with its disaster.
Complacent is the word that I would use for the Australian response, and quite dynamic is probably the word I would use for the American response.
Unlike in the U.S., the Australian government never issued any kind of moratorium on new drilling. In fact, in the months following the disaster, the Resources Minister approved a new oil lease for the very company involved in the Montara spill. Even permits have gone out as the well continued to gush at Montara.
No, we got no intention of putting a moratorium on drilling in place.
Resources and Energy Minister Martin Ferguson just announced dozens of new sites for offshore oil exploration, including deep water locations. For Australia, he says the demand for energy and jobs outweighs the environmental risks.
Australia is not returning to us sitting under trees and basket weaving. We are a strong economy that has a strong focus on environmental considerations. But I always know that there is a section of the Australian community, no matter how strong our environmental processes are, we will never please them. That is the nature of society, same as the United States.
In the coming days, Minister Ferguson will release a government report on what went wrong with the Montara spill, how it happened, and how the response could have been better. The report will help shape new oil regulations in Australia, but federal regulators here in the U.S. will also be paying attention. A spokesperson for Interior Secretary Ken Salazar tells me there are lessons to be learned about raising the bar for safety and environmental protection. Brianna Keeler, CNN, Washington.